welcome to another episode of Low Gear. And Low Gear is proudly sponsored by J-Swap Stock Foods and Matamata. I'm in a place called Takaka, which is north of Motueka, which is north of Nelson. And over this hill, they call it over the hill, there's a museum here. And it's got all sorts of things, mainly motorbikes. As you can see, there's a lot of motorbikes. He's got the odd car here and there. And he's also got nostalgia that takes you way back to the 1950s and the 40s and when we were all young. On the far side, he's got some World War II memorabilia as well, which is outstanding as far as the collection goes. But what we're going to do is I'll get Paul in here and we'll talk about some of these motorbikes. And the feature motorbike is one in the far corner over there, which we'll look at, where a man made this motorbike. And in order to have an engine, he got a 6-cylinder Holden engine and cut it in half. So he's got 3 cylinders, and he used those 3 cylinders to power this motorbike. Kiwi ingenuity to the absolute max. So we'll get Paul in and we'll have a chat about some of his gear. With me is Paul, and Paul, welcome to our little show.
Oh, thank you.
And an outstanding collection of memorabilia, I have to say.
Wow.
And I'm intrigued with somebody who would take a Holden engine and cut it in half and turn it into a motorbike.
Yeah.
Perhaps you'd just like to tell us.
It's a work of art. I mean, and Stewie Percival, as you know on the card, built this over a number of years for reasons unbeknown. I think it was just to create something absolutely unusual, and it is unusual. And if you look at the steering on her, everything's Holden. So he's actually got the engine cut it in half. He's made plates up to put over the end of the thing, but the rest of it is all either home built or Holden, other than the hand grip or two's a motorbike, but the rest is all Holden car.
And he had it going. He's actually raced it.
He actually rode it. Yes. She's very, very heavy, hugely heavy. I mean, it's I struggle to lift just the back of it, and if you try and grab the front and feel how heavy it is. So how stable on the road it was, I'm not sure. But like I said, it's just innovative, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Belt drive, and so it's just one of those things. He's got back to the gearbox, and then you've got your.
So Stewie's just a local guy.
Yes, he's just a local guy, and in fact, if you go up to the Saturday markets, you can buy a pizza off him at the moment.
Fair enough.
He's doing pizzas up there, and I talked to him on Saturday. But as I said, it's just an unreal thing. I mean, to build the wheels, the lot,
really?
Is just something I thought was outstanding.
How long did that take you?
No, I'm not too sure.
Okay.
You'd have to ask Stewie that. But
Yeah.
I went down on occasions and had a chat with him while he was doing it, because I couldn't see the point I didn't think it would ever work, to be honest. And when, of course, I went down one day and he said that he was going to pull it apart and scrap her, so I bought it off him. Yeah. I just think it's too unique.
Absolutely.
And I always had the visions, and I mean, this is when the Holden racing team was in Wellington, and I had the vision. I'd been up there a couple of times to watch the street racing, and I had the vision of actually getting a fiberglass cover for her and a seat and riding it round in front of the Holden team.
With Holden written on it.
As I said, she's got all the badges, so he's kept the badges. So, I just thought it would have been really, really awesome to actually just ride it round, because you wouldn't want to go fast, and I wouldn't imagine.
So even the radiator's just cut down to fit?
Yeah, everything's cut down. It's just, as I said, there's nothing there that's not Holden. It's an incredible carburetor, everything, distributor, even the shock absorber in the front.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's, quite amazing, eh?
So you never know you can find in people's sheds. The innovation.
Brilliant engineering.
Absolutely.
Brilliant engineering. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, if you start with a Holden car and you end up with this, you've got to be pretty damn talented, as far as I can see. And, I mean, she's about 1,600 cc. She's 186, so, wow. Yeah. So she originally was a 186, yeah. So yes, as I said, it's just an amazing work of art. I think it's a work of art. And when I hopefully end up displaying it properly, in the. I'm hoping to have a new museum like a
yes,
building. I'd like that up somewhere where you can actually have it as an individual,
and you can look right
see
around
it.
the thing. Yeah, amazing.
Because everywhere you look, you just think, how did he do that, or why would he do that? And I mean, some of it's probably not finished too well. She's just great chunks of steel bolted to the side of it. But as I said, it's a brilliant engineering feat.
Awesome.
For someone in a back shed. It's a back shed stuff. This is not great workshop stuff. This is a back shed.
No, we know lots of guys who do amazing things just in their back shed. Like,
that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Gavin Abbott sort of restores these old diamond tees, and he's just doing it in the back shed, on the back. Some of the bigger trucks he's just done on his back lawn,
Yeah, and they don't have all the lathes and gear to do it with. It's just what they've got. So
no, it's just
anyway,
Kiwi ingenuity. This is just a lesson in Kiwi ingenuity. Really.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I mean, although it's not quite up to the standard of Britain.
Oh well.
I mean, as I said, I still think it's on a par with it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's
absolutely.
If you look at it, it's an incredible bike.
You've got a collection. You don't have any motorbikes you've got in here, Paul?
Oh, I think there's about 48 or something in here, 50.
And the rarest one?
And no, I haven't really got a rare one. See, these are all mainly everyday motorbikes.
Yeah, from the time.
And mainly from around Golden Bay. Just I was working, fortunately, with TNL, Transport Nelson, as a spreader, as a manure spreader. So I got round the farms a bit. And those days when I first got married, I was digging bottles. So that's all I could afford, you see. It costs you nothing to dig a hole. And I look back now and think if I'd have spent the weekends, instead of actually digging for bottles, I'd gone and got a little part-time job. I can buy a box full of these now for $20. I spent all weekend to get two,
Takes the dig out of it.
Anyway, it does really when you think of it. But anyway, it was fun at the time. I enjoyed it. And of course, it led on because you'd go to a farm and you'd see a bike under a tree or in
the back of the shed covered in dust.
And you say to them, well, they were all in bits mainly because people tended to pull them to bits and then couldn't put them back together. So
I was looking at the one on the end there. It says it's a Sunbeam.
Yes.
Is that the name of the bike? Or
yes,
is that
that's the name of the company.
Model?
That's the name of the company. It's heavy. You can see why the bike's so heavy.
And there it is. That's the other half of the Holden block that makes up this bike. And as Paul just said, you wouldn't want to drop it on your toe, but it would make a good little anchor or a mooring, really.
That's for the next bike he's going to do. Yeah, and he designed these plates to fit on the end where he'd cut it off so that she was still oil tight. And
but as I was saying, Kiwi ingenuity to the max. Now, after the break, we'll just have another squiz at what Paul's got here. And Paul, people can come and look at this, but by arrangement.
Yeah, I'm work, so sure, I mean, unfortunately, I'm just not here. I mean, I'm off work at the moment, aren't I? I should be somewhere, but anyway. I do have rather flexible working hours with some of the jobs that I've got, so it's not too bad. And so people just ring up, and I'm quite happy for them to come. My wife does sometimes just open the door if I'm not about.
Sure.
They are.
Yeah.
But a lot of clubs come on weekends and things like that, so it's always very good. There's no charge. It's my hobby really.
Sure. Yeah.
But I do have a donation box, and like the mini club come some years ago, and they left me 2 little miniatures and something else, and I've got it as a display.
Sure.
And that's probably more valuable than money, because at the end of the day, I only spend it on this rubbish anyway. So.
The 2014 Northern Classic Truck Run DVD is now available. Join the boys and girls as they travel from Wellington all the way up to North Cape and back again, stopping along the way at some interesting places with some great truck driving camaraderie. This 2-hour DVD set is $40, and you can get your copy by calling me on 095365327 or visit our webpage www.lowgear.co.nz.
Welcome to Smugglers Pub and Cafe, open 7 days a week with free parking all day. Our lunch menus have that old-fashioned flavour where we treat you like treasure with the food you'll savour.
We cater for children, grannies and granddads too, with special rates and privileges given to the elderly lunchtime crew. Our staff are friendly and kind and want to see you all come back time after time.
Daytime or evening, it doesn't matter. Give us a call on 546 4084 and we'll be happy to spoil ya.
I'm Francis from Nelson Auto Glass. We repair all auto glass, stone chips, windscreen replacements, scratch removal.
If you have an auto glass issue, our team will sort it.
Nelson Auto Glass Specialist, 84 Vanguard Street, Nelson.
Mahindra are on board with the Low Gear show, and everyone's asking me, what's it like off the tar seal? Well, we did just that and drove along some very rural roads, and the roads got narrower and narrower as we headed toward Knoll Pylon Access Road. And there it is. We have to come down that reasonably steep hill to connect with the main road. So we have to put it into four-wheel drive, which is just a matter of a small switch, into gear, and off we go. The main road's at the bottom of the hill, and that's where we have to go to get there. I'm very impressed with the four-wheel drive part of this truck. It's holding on this hill very, very well. Probably just as well as all the other four-wheel drives I've ever driven. We're over the lip quite safely, and it gets a little bit steeper on the far side, and we're at the bottom, and I'm really impressed. But just to make sure, what I'm going to do now is put it in reverse and back up the hill again to see how she goes, just to make doubly sure that she's as good as I thought she was. And she is. Look at that. That's absolutely impressive. Mahindra. Go to www.mahindra.co.nz to find a dealer near you. Sunbeam is that British?
Yes, it is. Yes, and it was a company of its own. Way back in the 1900s they started, 1910s or something, and went through to around about 1953, 54, when they amalgamated with BSA. And so, but the Sunbeam model, this is in 1953, and this belongs to Chubb Wood. And Chubb, if you look on all the bikes that I've restored,
yep,
you'll see his name. And Chubb was the mechanic at Transport Nelson when I was doing the sowing around the paddocks. And he was a bit of an enthusiastic on motorbikes. He rode this machine, of course, when I knew him. And so, of course, I sort of caught the bug off him, as you do.
As you do, yeah.
And him and I become cobbers, which has been probably the making of my collection, because he was a marine engineer and brilliant engineer, and he's also a gunsmith, so hence the guns, so you can see where I've got the habit from. And Chubb and I met in about 1972, so it's nearly as long as my marriage. Well, it is as long as my marriage. And but we've been cobbers all the way through, and he retired from work in about 1983. And he said the silliest thing you could ever say. He said, "Is there something I can do for you?" And he restored 40 odd engines, I think. So I was picking them up, and I do the body work. So I did the painting and the sanding and the running around for parts and buying the bits. And Chubb, I'd take the engine parts up to him, and he'd slowly assemble it in his shed. Him and I used to, every weekend, whenever I got a chance, I'd go and spend 3 or 4 hours with him, and we'd put something together. and then he'd start demanding he wanted the frame bits and he wanted the mudguards and he wanted, you know, so I had to keep me A and to G all the time.
Yeah.
And this belonged to him. He brought this in 1983 from a catalogue, and he paid for it, or part paid for it, and it took 8 months to get here from England because they had a wharf strike in England. And so she sat on the wharf, and when she arrived, she had a scratch on it. Where are we? Somewhere here. There's a scratch on it, and they gave here, and they gave him a discount of £17. He paid about 300 and something odd pound for it, and they gave him a discount of £17 because they felt sad for the scratch. And he's ridden it for 40 years, probably 50 years. Chubb's it's up in the Tarka rest home, and after here I go up there nearly every day to say g'day.
Wow.
And I'm reading him a book on motorbikes, a joker's trip around England at the moment on motorbikes. He went blind about 8 or 9 years ago, so partially blind, not totally blind, partially blind, which stopped him from working. He just couldn't see to do things, which was frustrating for him. This is an inline twin. Again, a brilliant design, but the English never seem to get the idea of finishing something properly. And they put a worm drive on a motorbike, a worm drive. Wow. Now, they had a huge history in Morris Minors and Austin 7s. All they had to do was put in a diff the same, and they would have been home and hosed. But of course, you couldn't increase the power of this thing. They tried them in South Africa. The police used them. Beautiful, smooth bike to ride, awesome to ride, but it's just so sluggish. It's a bloody 600 pound and it's got a 500cc motor. Just never finished it off, eh? They had the design, they had everything. Gentleman's bike, she would have sold like hotcakes, but they just weren't good performers.
I just love the way this mudguard is. It just sort of seems fat.
I think that was a businessy type thing, you know, it was designed for the sort of the business person. And as I said, a beautiful smooth bike, but just never finished with the stupid worm drive. The South African police put a 750 motor in, they tried, and it just burnt the worm drive out all the time, so they couldn't do it.
Does it leak oil?
No, she's pretty good. And that's unusual for an English bike. It's unusual. But, you know, that's, she's actually, as I said, she's actually a beautiful designed bike with one real Achilles heel, and that was this damn worm drive.
Wow.
And as I said, very nice to ride. They did improve them. They tried to make a racing model, exactly the same bike, but they chopped all the fancy bits off it, and they thinned down everything to make it all a bit lighter. Yeah. And they probably took, you know, 50 pound off it, but it's the same 500 and the same worm drive. So at the end of the day, you know, sorry. And this belongs to Chubb as well. This one come into the bay. He was working at the workshop, he reckons, and he heard a bike go past and he said, that's a Sunbeam. So he raced out, looked down the road, and he could see it disappearing in the distance. So of course he had to make inquiries of who had the Sunbeam, and eventually he bought it once the joker didn't want it anymore. So
wow.
Yeah.
And you've got another one?
And I've got my one over here, yes. Mine's a 1950. This is a 53 and a 54.
Oh, yeah. So this would have been getting up near the last of them.
This was the last of them. Yeah, virtually is.
Wow. So this is your one, Paul, the black one?
Yes. I got this in Nelson, and it was a basket case. I got a photograph of it there as I got it. And the old trouble is you get a bike and they say, Dad pulled it to pieces 10 years ago, and it's all there. There's nothing changed, but you don't know that Dad only ever had half a bike. However, this was reasonably complete, so it was actually quite a nice project. And because we had 2 examples, it was easy to actually follow along, and you knew what you needed out of the box all the time and where it went. So of course, it was one of the more enjoyable restorations because I didn't have to search the whole country for 2 or 3 parts. Wow. She's all complete, and I actually had some spares left over on this one, so it was ideal.
That front mudguard, when you compare it with the green one, it just
Yes.
seems to be a bit skinnier. So
Yes,
it
that's
sort of
right.
suggests that
Yeah.
they're trying to sort of make the green one just look a little more appealing to the.
I think
to
that's
the
what they
buying
were
public.
trying to do. They were trying to make it a bit more user-friendly for those who are wearing suits. So so you try and get a big mudguard. If you look at the gentleman's BSA over there, the big wide front mudguard, that was designed to stop any splashes on his suit when he was going to work. So they sort of tried to cater for all these different customers that they were requiring. Not everyone was a racer, you know. They had to try and just get to the everyday work, and that's one of the examples. And as I said, a brilliant design, really. It's hard to believe you hop on it and it's so smooth, whereas say you ride the Triumph Speed Twin and you've got that vibration all the time, or you ride a big Panther and you've got the thump of the actual thing going in a single cylinder, whereas this is just absolutely lovely and smooth. So
You think having that the engine design the way they've got it, you know, made that difference?
yeah, I think that probably just streamlined it more than anything. I mean, any twin is yeah, I'm not sure what makes that, because of most of these twins, even on a Ducati or anything like that, you can still sometimes feel the actual different firing.
They tell me that odd numbered cylinders like 3, 5, 7 run smoother than even numbered cylinders.
Well, that's why they made the triples, of course, and yes, they reckon that they are a smoother engine. And if you look at the Triumph Speed triple and the early BSA triples, they were very smooth apparently, but out of my price range.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was looking at the handlebars on the one next door, and we were talking to the guys at Triumph who said that they fitted those handlebars to send them to America.
Oh, okay.
Whereas the English ones just come out of the nacelle, you know, they're just little short jobs.
Well, that is a BSA they're a special handlebar. They were built for the AA, so this is an AA bike, and with the side chair and all. And she's actually an M20 motorbike, which is the old Army Army BSA motorbike, with a B33 motor in it. So it had the overhead valve, a little bit higher compression, a little bit more performance than the old M20. And virtually made from parts after the war. I mean, they just kept on getting rid of all the parts they had after the war. Sure. But she's, from Blenheim. She's the AA car from Blenheim. And
I didn't even notice the little bathtub thing sitting beside it there with a little shape like a little boat.
Yes.
So he would have had all his tools and all
his tools and bits and that, and a spare battery, and and he'd race out and get you going again. So yeah, she's actually quite a unique bike. I mean, there's not too many of them in New Zealand anymore, and it should have the AA signs, big AA signs on either side. But unfortunately, when I got it, someone had prized them off, and you can see they broke the fiberglass getting them off. Wow. But you can get them cut out of light timber and put them back.
What does BSA stand for?
Oh, now you've got me.
British something.
Yeah, yes.
There you go, folks. If you know the answer to that, there's my contact details. Give me a ring.
Yeah,
Tell me what
I should know when I've got about 16 of them in the shed, shouldn't I?
But then there's AJS.
Yes, well, that was another one. It's just another English firm, and Lenny said it before what it was, but yeah, they're not really that interesting to me. The names and performances and CC ratings.
Recently, folks, we looked at a Smith Rodley and a Ruston Bucyrus machines.
Oh, yes.
And they tell me that the Ruston Bucyrus, if you push the lever forwards, the winches went one way, and the Smith Rodley, if you push them forward like this, they went the other way.
Oh, okay.
So with the Harley and the Indian, if you got on one or
the other,
suddenly you go, oh.
Yeah. And AJS were bad at it too. They had their foot change on the opposite side to Triumph. And I race an old AJ 500 out there, about a 1951 body and chassis and a 54 engine. And I go to the old thumpers each year, and my brain has to have a couple of runs beforehand, because otherwise I'm shooting downhill, changing gear, going up, instead of actually putting the brake on because it's on the other side. So it's just one of those things you've just got to, you know, really be conscious of what
But it's
you're
amazing
doing.
how this human brain works, because we drive a Ford,
Yeah.
and it's
Yes.
obviously made for the left-hand side, but they didn't change it, so it's on the left, and then you get in the Toyota and it's on the right.
Yeah, on the right.
And you spend the next sort of half an hour sort of turning on the windscreen
Or
wipers,
yes,
turn on
I
the
was going to say the
wipers.
windscreen wipers usually come on instead of the blinker.
So
Yeah.
it's just amazing. It takes
So
a
the
while for
Indians,
this to snap in.
But that's as I said, they were Army Indians. I think they had an 11-minute lifespan.
Oh, really? That's
the
how long
Army
they
Indian.
expected them to last?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Well, I think if you worked it out from the amount that were produced to the amount that were lost, and I mean, because a lot of them went down at sea in their crates because they were taking them across and be torpedoed by a U-boat. So they lost hundreds of thousands of the damn things. And I think they worked it out at the end of the war. There were about 11 minutes they lasted. But we were lucky in New Zealand. Of course, the Americans come here and they bought a lot of Army Indians, and they were sold for £10 or whatever after the war.
Sure.
And this one I got out at Tukarua. It was a man had it out there, all in parts, all in bits.
Sure.
And unfortunately, the rats had been sleeping in it, so it smelt and stunk and was going rusty. But she all come up very good. And its intention here is to actually have it painted army green, and the same with the BSA beside it. That's an Army M20, BSA M20, and that did service in Lebanon. So that eventually will go back.
So these were the messenger guys taking
These were the messenger guys,
yeah.
So that eventually, when I can afford the time, it's not the money, it's the time, it's getting to do it. I'd like to paint them army green. So that's a project.
Next door to that is a midget, and I've got a friend, Reese Fakuri, who was a pretty famous midget driver back in the day at Western Springs there, and they actually gave him a gong for services to Speedway. But you don't see these every day either.
No, this is a TQ, this one. This is the motorbike engine. They weren't allowed to be above 850cc, and this has got a Honda 1974 Honda 4 750cc rating. And my son Kyle, at 15, drove this. He was interested in Speedway, and this was affordable, $500. But the trouble was, of course, that after about the second year, the motors for some of the cars in the country, they were paying $25,000 for. So it really become out of our league to spend huge amounts of money. We kept it going for about 4 or 5 seasons, or 4 seasons or something, and he was running about the middle of the pack, and then slowly just got left behind with the sheer power and bigger engines, and just money took over. And,
Sure.
And,
so it went from a fun thing to that's too hard.
We probably got right to the end. We come on the end of the fun thing, and we come into a business really. So that's a sad part, but they still had a lot of fun. Graham too, you see, from the junction, So,
but I just remember when we were I was 15.
Yes.
And they had the Model A truck, or AA, and it never had anything else but the firewall. And then behind that was a sofa that they tied on with number 8 wire. Behind that was a couple of pallets, And they go down to the Teco pub and get 6 of these things, load them on the back, and then they'll get about halfway. They have to just make sure it was all right.
You'd have to make sure it wasn't shaken up too much.
That's right, yeah. So you had to try a bit, and then everybody going both ways, and suddenly there's this great big party in the middle of the bloody road, going both ways. But anyway, this is shed's really inadequate for a museum, and I want to build one uptown. And so eventually the junction will be reborn as a display. And I've got a bit of carpet there from the Junction Hotel, which I'll have in front of a bar from there, and then this can all be all done. Folks, you can get hold of Paul. Here's his phone number, and if he's home and you can make some arrangement, it's really worth maybe getting a group of you together, or maybe a group of caravanners or whatever, a club. Come in and you can spend the whole day in here. It's just unbelievable.
Yes,
Paul,
I get a number of clubs.
Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome.
Absolutely.
No, you're welcome.
An absolute delight.
Yeah, so if you want to come and see the rest of it sometime.
Yes, we've.